Have I ever told you guys how much I love dealing with fundamentalist Christians? There's something about just dealing with somebody that really doesn't understand the word but thinks they understand the word better than everybody else. It just gets my rocks off. You know what I'm saying? It's so much fun. Case in point, thick shades. Just recently, I made a video about 10 questions or 12 questions I wanted to ask Christians, but I haven't even yet got a real response. I've gotten 2 Christians, one including Thick Shades, telling me that I'm not genuinely seeking the answers and therefore they're not going to tell me what they are. But Thick Shades is taking this further. Instead of watching the video, he's trying to get me to just ask him all the questions again instead of him actually taking the 9 minutes to watch out the video. But we basically talked about that for, a good 12 hours as he tap danced around the question instead of watching the fucking video and answering the fucking question, so he wasn't going to do that. So we kept this conversation going on for a while, and today we got on to about Isaiah and Ezekiel. And as I mentioned in that video and probably a few times before, I've made 2 videos about this. The Devil is Not in the Details 1 and Part 2. I went into detail about what they actually talked about, how it shows it was referencing a man and not a devil, and referencing the cities and all that kind of good stuff, and the overall theme of God's, the people were in trouble now, but God's going to come back and kick all the other cities' ass for treating them so wrong. I tried to make that very clear in this video, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't watched the video, so I once again had to explain this to him. Explain how the chapters were lined out and what their purposes were. And then Thick Shades says that Isaiah 14, verse 12, like just that scripture, is about the devil. Being that Thick Shades is a big fan of the King James Version, we shall stick with the King James Version for Isaiah 14, chapter 12, which states, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations?" Now, the thing is, what's really interesting about the use of Lucifer in the King James is that you don't find it in any other translation that's not King James related. Now, there is a reason for this. It's because scholars and historians and all types of people that are Christians, for the most part, mind you, have all realized that there was this weird problem with the word Lucifer. Now, Saint Germain translated the Holy Hebrew Bible into the Latin Vulgate a long, long time ago. The word for the morning star is Lucifer. That's the Latin word for morning star is Lucifer, or Luciferum, I believe, is actually maybe more proper. And it is not a proper noun. It's a lowercase word there. And the King James Version writers that came after the Latin Vulgate used the Latin Vulgate to translate into English. However, when they looked at the word Lucifer, which is morning star, which isn't even exactly the most proper, appropriate term for the Hebrew morning star, they pretty much stuck with the word Lucifer, and it ended up later on being more of a proper name. So they actually it was long story short, is a transliteration of the word morning star into Lucifer. So in case my words suck, because this is still a little bit confusing to me, and I'm not that smart. Long story short, the word Lucifer is Latin and is not Hebrew. So it was not in the Hebrew Bible by any stretch of the imagination. So the people that were responsible for this, the King James Version writers, have just basically made up a proper noun, a proper name for something that doesn't belong there. This is not saying there's no devil or anything to that extent. It's just saying Lucifer is not his name. And the morning star is actually in reference to Venus, which is the planet that can actually be seen in the very early morning. They call it the morning star. But I explained all that to Thick Shades, and he just kind of said, well, let's get this straight. And you'll see this in the comments below my other video. And he just said, no, Lucifer is Satan, blah, 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 blah. Just completely rejected it. See, I'm not just talking about the Lucifer thing. I'm really talking about thick shades here. I just wanted to set up the backstory. So I went into pretty good detail in explaining, and I even sent him the site that actually explained this, and it's Bible.org, and I'll list it below as well. This isn't like some skeptic site. This is Christians. These are a bunch of Christians and historians and scholars and saying, look, what you think about Lucifer is wrong. This is not, the word for Lucifer is improper. It's not really about the devil. This is something else. It's a mistranslation. The King James Bible has screwed up. But despite my best efforts, Thick Shades wasn't going to have it. And it's telling when a person can bring out the combined efforts of historians and scholars and translators and people that just generally understand the scripture so well and that have spent their lives understanding it and making sense of it. They can tell you, hey, no, this Isaiah 14 scripture or chapter, well, it's about a prophecy against the other cities, and it's purely a prophecy against king. It's not a double prophecy. In fact, the word Lucifer is really not Latin and not Hebrew, and so this whole idea that Satan is also called Lucifer is actually wrong. They can tell you all this, and they can point out why, and they can show the translations, and they can give you the historical context, and that person, that fundamentalist Christian, just like Thick Stains, will say, no, that's not wrong. That's not correct. You're wrong. I'm right. The Bible is literal. I don't care how much you've studied and understand. I know the truth. I have the exact answer because the Bible has to be literal. Sometimes it's fun to watch the fundamentalist Christians in actions because I start to notice a trend. They start off by cherry picking a scripture, and then you point out that they're cherry picking a scripture, and then they say, well, no, you have to understand the hermeneutics and the context, and then you show them the hermeneutics and the context, and then they point out that you're ignorant, or that you don't know the Bible, or you don't understand prophecy, or you're an atheist. What authority do you have? And then you point out that, well, hey, I used to be a Christian, and that I understand where the prophecy is saying. I understand the mindset that you have. I just saying you're incorrect. It doesn't make sense. Or that you don't really have to be a Christian to understand all of these things about the Bible. There's nothing special about a Christian to an atheist reading the Bible. There's nothing really particularly different. And then when you point that out to them, well, they run like a bitch, just like Thick Shades did. But to cover that whole, I guess you call it double prophecy, where it's Isaiah 14:12 is about a king, but it's also about Satan. Well, I mean, yeah, if you really try hard enough, if you look around for different scriptures looking for certain things, yeah, you can absolutely make it sound like anything. I mean, let's look at, let's say Isaiah 16:11. Wherefore my bowels shall sound like an harp for Moab. Oh my God, the Bible is predicting that I went to Taco Bell the other day. I mean, if you already have a preconceived notion of what something is, and then you look back at it, a scripture that sounds like it, we're human beings, we find patterns really easily. And being that there's only so many things under the sun, of course you can find something that sounds like what it is that you believe, and it can sound like a prophecy, it can sound like a prediction, it can sound like it explains something that that happened before. That really doesn't mean anything. The most important part is context and understanding what it is. Claiming that something is a prophecy or however you want to call it doesn't really mean jack shit. I'm going to finish this video with a scripture, Proverbs 12:15. Fundies, you may want to write this down, take notes. And this is in King James, by the way, because I know how much you love some King James. The way of a fool is right within his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. This is the Atheist Chef signing off. Peace.